I'm with Heidi Gerber of Vitality Physiotherapy on Hat Street in Dundas, opposite Amica. And you've been there for, was it 4 years now?
I've been here for 4 years, in Dundas for 14.
Right. You're on King Street, just around the corner for a while.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. And I know, obviously, I know something of the history of that building, but how old is that building? It's an old house, isn't it?
1870, I believe. There's a couple of different dates, but 1870, 1881 are the two dates that have been given to me.
Yeah, and I know it's obviously been a work in progress, and you've done an amazing job of renovating it inside.
Thank you, Judy. I appreciate that.
You must get a lot of compliments from people as well.
Yeah, and you know what, we renovated the main floor in 10 weeks because we had to move. We wanted to move. And so that was fast. And Judy, you were part of that. Judy was my amazing realtor. So she helped me when we bought this house quick and came over. So thank you, Judy. And the same lady lived here for, I think that's because it's a local family that still drop by sometime and take a look, not so much with COVID, but the same lady lived here for 81 years since she was 16. And lots of family stories. So I am getting a little bit more slowly but surely of the history of the home. So
fantastic.
And it was so commercial. Yeah, and you helped me with that part too. So that was a big piece to this, finding something that suited the business part of it. Yeah. So and go ahead. Sorry.
Hat Street would have been the railroad tracks would have been going up and down back then.
Yeah. And I do have one more piece of history that you might be interested in. I don't know if I've ever told you this, Judy. So a patient, and that's okay for me to say, who was part of, I want to say LACAC. It's like the historical. They do some of the architectural, they looked at this house long before I ever owned it. And so she gave me a piece of paper and it, talked about it being, I'm not that good with the architecture. I want to say Georgian style and what the actual history was. I didn't know that we would talk about that or I would have got the paper out, but it was a boarding house for widows at one point. And there's history before that about, it might've been, there was somebody quite well known in the town that owned it. I just don't have that in my memory bank. My COVID brain's pretty tired. So, but that's kind of neat that it was a rooming house for widows.
It is. Yeah. The history of these buildings is great. So how long have you been a physiotherapist?
I have been a physiotherapist for 30 years last June. So coming up on 31, because that impacted me when COVID happened. And we were locked down when you and I were talking about some of the format of the show, I thought about that because we weren't locked down the first time. We were sort of we're still considered essential as a regulated healthcare professional as a physiotherapist, but for all intents purposes, we were almost closed last April, May, June. I decided to close a week before we were mandated to almost close 100%. Our College of Physiotherapists of Ontario said that we could only treat A, B, C, D, E, and F. Or we're governed by the college, so we have to follow what they say. So, I mean, we had 4 patients one week, and that can't help you survive. But we had to follow those rules because there was no way, looking back on that now, it seems sort of like a moot point. There was no way that we would help, fight COVID if we didn't follow those guidelines. But anyways, so and in those days, Judy, nobody knew about the PPEs and everything else. So I was sourcing out product, making the clinic safe, only laid off 1 employee, 1.5 part-time only. And, but it hit me, back to your original question, it hit me during I'm going to call it our full reopening, June 2nd. A week later, I was walking around the clinic going, I'm 30 years of physio. I'm too old for this, but I was joking. I'm still fairly young and I still have some life in me. So, even after the stress of that initial sort of, and being newer 4 years over in this new space, but I try to always look at the positive things in life. I'm really grateful that I moved into this owned space because probably with what was happening with my, is it okay to say what was happening on King Street with a rent increase?
Of course.
I may have had to close. So this probably, as much as it's been hard with COVID, it's probably allowed me, reflectively, it's probably allowed me to stay open.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
So and I'll have an apartment upstairs that'll generate some revenue too once it's finished. It's just not quite done yet.
Yeah,
So
I'll look forward to coming to have a look at your latest,
absolutely,
stuff.
anytime. You're always welcome.
Yeah. And how many staff do you have, Heidi?
So I have 2 physios that work part to full time because the longer you work, because we specialize in manual physiotherapy and acupuncture. So orthopedics, but the manual physiotherapy is an advanced training aspect in our profession. So at 30 years, you know, 40 hours of that's a lot. So most of us have an afternoon or a day where we don't do this anymore because you get tired. But so 2 physios, Kim Talbot and Diana Dawson, and Sheila Park is my office manager. And then during COVID, I was approached by 2 osteopaths, and I now have 2 osteopaths that work Tuesday, Friday, and Saturday, which is great because we as physios weren't open on Saturdays. But John Spratt and Melissa Jeffries, osteopaths, are now working on those days.
Very good.
Very good. So that's fantastic.
Yeah. And did you own your own business before when you were on King Street? It was your business then as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was my business. For the first year, I had a friend who had worked in hospital that was a business partner, but it just didn't suit her after the year. And she had never worked in private practice, and it's a different bird if you're not used to it. So I bought her out, and that was the best thing for me.
Yeah, it must be quite challenging having your own business.
Yes.
The government involvement and all sorts of things. So
yeah, absolutely.
What would you say is the biggest challenge of having your business in the specific line of work that you do?
I think probably the human resource aspect, just like the hiring and just keeping people. I mean, I have a great staff. I'm not, that's not anything to do with any sort of, I think more so just scheduling and just making sure people are happy. And I mean, that's such a loaded question because the last year's been tough on everybody with COVID. Yeah. So I think just that piece. Yeah. And sometimes the financial piece, just hoping that navigating, maybe this, Judy, navigating, because we're small and personal, we're a different type of physiotherapist. And where I left, the reason I went to King Street, I only opened that, I don't actually care about age, but I opened that late. I was in my 40s. And that's late to open a business, I think. It was a corporate acquisition where I had worked for 14 years in Westdale by a massive company that owns 50, I think they owned at the time, if that was 2007, they owned 50 to 60 clinics across Canada. It happens in physio, it happens in dentistry. It's not a negative thing, it's just what happens. And I didn't want to stay in that corporate environment. It's a different approach to physiotherapy.
Yeah, I can imagine. So you're the one that you're sort of a one-person show, as it were. Like you make all the decisions, and must be quite stressful. Like your hours every day must be quite long.
Yeah, I've been able with great staff to not do a 10 or 12-hour day anymore. Some days, like I do an 8 to 10 depending, but I can take like a Wednesday afternoon now to do some of my business stuff. So yeah. Yeah, and I still try to I need to pass that off. I still try to do some of my own paperwork and my books and stuff, but I'm slowly passing that off to other people. Yeah. And realizing it's not my forte,
Exactly. That's the thing. When you have your own business, you do realize that you don't want to do everything, nor can you do it that well. So
I'm managing the reno and that type of thing, but it's slowly coming to an end, So
I was going to ask you if you do specialize, so what did you say? It's manual
physiotherapy. So basically how I would explain that to, let's say, my mother, if she didn't ever she's experienced it. So, or somebody who didn't understand that, is hands-on. So basically looking, let's say, at your spine, if you came in with back pain, and feeling the movements of your spine, of your joints, and figuring out if that's why your muscle feels tight, or vice versa, feeling the muscle and saying, okay, this is happening for a reason. So looking at the biomechanics of your movement and figuring out why something isn't working. And then fixing that, which is what I love about my profession, because, we're not legally allowed to say we specialize, but you're allowed to say, what are we allowed to say? You have some advanced practice anyways. there's some terminology, but if we were to say that our specialty is, for lack of semantics, is orthopedics and manual therapy, it's pretty neat when you work on someone and something moves better and they have less pain and they have better function.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and it doesn't always happen in one treatment, obviously. It depends how long the problem's been there. Sometimes it does, and that's pretty neat. And we also, all of us are able, because we have different levels within our profession of post-grad education, we can manipulate the spine too. So similar to what some other professions do, but that's pretty neat because some of those improvements can be automatic.
Well, how is it different than chiropractic medicine then in terms of manipulating? Because when you said manipulate, that's what I think of as a chiropractor.
It wouldn't be that much different. Some of our techniques might be slightly different than how they might choose to manipulate, but some would be exactly the same.
Okay. And where does the acupuncture come in?
The acupuncture would come in, let's say you've had some chronic conditions. If you've done all of that stuff, Judy, and you're not getting any relief, so we might try that. Nerve pain, the acupuncture is fantastic for nerve pain. So people who get, stuff down into their leg from a sciatic nerve condition, just for an example. Or the other time that it might work is when our manual therapy, sometimes you can't lay hands on someone. They've just had a car accident. Right. And they are so acutely inflamed and their tissue is so irritated that they can't tolerate even you to do your full assessment. So sometimes needling can calm the systems down.
Fantastic.
So that's a good example till you can then go in and do that biomechanical assessment.
Yeah. And then where do the osteopaths come in? What do they do differently?
The osteopaths, they're sort of their own entity and they're sort of a complement to the clinic. They are an older profession coming from the Northern European, and I don't want to define them wrong because they're their own profession. And they're not regulated, but that's not a problem. That's just how because they're probably younger in North America. It's interesting. So if I've been to one before a long time ago, and if you were going to them for, I don't know, let's say headaches or something, they might treat your stomach, but they might treat your neck too. So they look at the whole body. It's a very interesting field as well. So I can't speak as well on the osteopaths because I'm not an osteopath, but having said that, some treatments manual physiotherapy does, Judy, to your sacroiliac joint, your tailbone, let's say, might come from old osteopathic techniques in Northern Europe that some of our, my mentors have brought to Canada and then taught us.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, there's a lot of those sort of related professions that cross boundaries, don't they?
Absolutely.
There's slightly different approaches, but it's fantastic. Well, do people need a referral from a doctor or can they just walk in?
Because we're a regulated healthcare professional, you don't need a referral. Having said that, if you have extended health benefits and want to put it through insurance, your insurance might ask you for that referral. So usually what Sheila will say when someone calls is she'll tell them that maybe call your carrier, if it's Great West Life, Manulife, Sun Life, whoever it is, and just ask them that. But legally you can come to us first, and then we're pretty because we'll do a full assessment. We spend an hour with you the first time. We will discern if we think you need to go to your doctor, from a safety point of view, because we always will do safety tests. But legally you don't need the referral, but sometimes we want to make sure you're covered if you're going to submit it to insurance, because we're not OHIP. Our clinic in particular is a private practice and we're not OHIP covered. Okay. So
yeah. But you must get you must have a lot of satisfaction at the end of most days, I assume, when it's such a helping profession, isn't it?
Oh, thanks, Judy. Yeah, you know what? It is when you can make it, when you can make a difference. There's sometimes you can't, but you can always give somebody another option, I think.
Yeah.
For some sort of referral onwards, to someone else, like either to a doctor or a pain clinic or, And
Well,
I have some patients because of working in Westdale for 14 years and then now 14 here. Like I saw a lady the other day who, you know, call her patient X, Judy. She multiple car accidents, just unfortunately a string of bad occurrences. I've treated her probably for 25 to 30 years, off and on. You know, when things come up and she has a flare up,
yeah,
you know, and so you get to know people
yeah, yeah,
and they rely on you.
yeah, and
So
you know their history, so which is probably helpful.
yeah,
So in general, what do you think is people love most about you and your staff members in terms of the care that they receive?
I think probably I can't speak to what other clinics do, but I think maybe I've even been criticized. The man this morning said, "Wow, you spent a lot of time." I had a cancellation after that because with COVID, people in this new lockdown, people are nervous and their schedules are changing or they're getting a COVID test or what have you. So time, I remember years ago it was one of our yellow page ads. So we do spend the time
Right. Yeah.
because I mean, you know, we've all been to somewhere, be it a doctor, be it a physio, be it another healthcare practitioner where you might get 5 minutes. So we do spend the time. And I think I'd like to think that I try to listen to my patients
Mhm.
and set goals together with them about if you were coming to me. So Judy, what's important to you? What do you want to be able to do? What are
Yeah.
your hobbies? What's your job?
Yeah.
Um, you
Taking
know,
a real genuine personal interest in the people, and it's not
yeah,
just
and you
like a
know what?
line.
Based on like mentioning that lady who came back recently, I hadn't seen her in probably a year. Um, I know her. I know what's important to her. So I think I don't want to sound cliche, but getting to know people and their families
Yeah.
within
Yeah.
boundaries. Obviously, as physios, we do have boundaries as to how well you can get to know somebody. But I do think taking a vested interest, it's part of being in the community, Judy.
Yeah.
I was born in Flamborough. I went to the local schools. I'm a Parkside girl. You know, I'm a athlete from Parkside. I mean, you walk down the street. Some days you love that. Some days, you know what it's like. Some days, you know, you don't want to see 10 people when you just want to get
Yeah.
home. But
Yeah.
the best part of it really is seeing people, you know,
Oh,
and being able to,
yeah.
it's part of our community, you
I
know.
couldn't agree more.
I was telling one of my staff members that I was doing this, and when I said you don't want to see people, she made the joke of, because they say, "Oh, this hurts, and can you look at me?" And we can't look at them at a cocktail party. Not that cocktail parties are happening,
Yeah.
but you can always give somebody an idea of what they can try till they can get into the clinic to see you, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. 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 Very good.
So,
Yeah.
and
So
I'm sure that
Dundas.
happens in your industry too, that people ask you about the housing market or they
Yeah.
ask you
Yeah.
about this or,
Yeah. Yeah. And you're right. You
yeah,
have to be careful what you say as well, because you're sort of always on duty, aren't you, as it were?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So you were a Dundasian. I mean, close enough. You live in
Yeah,
Dundas now, I
absolutely.
know.
Yeah, yeah. We were a rural, my mom is still there. We were a rural, our number 2 Dundas. So, yep. Yeah, I'm a Dundas girl.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about. Well, I know what one of your great interests is your beautiful dog.
My beautiful girl. Yeah,
I know.
yeah.
I know. What kind
My,
is she?
my,
She's a
My 130 pound smooth coated Saint Bernard.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah,
She's
yeah.
131 pounds now, actually.
How long have you had her? Not a couple of years.
And you know what? So there's something. When I lost my dog, shortly before, yeah, shortly after moving in here, a patient found her for me, Judy. And if that doesn't speak volumes,
Yeah.
you know, she just was up late one night and she saw how sad I was about losing my former dog, Socrates, who was all part of my reno. He used to be in, like, he was from Clinic A over on King Street. And if that's not a random act of kindness, that woman just said, you have to look at this dog. And she's a therapy dog. She's been dubbed special.
Mm.
And she's drawn to people with disabilities. When COVID is milder, she will sit at the bottom of the stairs and give therapy to all our patients. They love her.
I bet they do. Yeah.
Cagney, her name is Cagney. I didn't name her. She had a sister named Lacey. So,
Of course she did.
mhm.
Yeah, I saw her once in the park when you first got her, I think.
Yes, you did. She came
July
for
1st.
cake. She came for cake.
That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah, their pancake day.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. She ate some
And
icing, I think, from the cake.
yeah, yeah, yeah. She's lovely. She's lovely.
Mhm.
And
Yeah,
I
she's
noticed,
pretty special.
yeah, they all are, aren't they? I mean,
Yeah.
of gorgeous animals. I noticed your arm. Show us your arm.
Oh,
You just got that recently.
yes.
Yeah, what's the story with that?
Resilience.
Mm.
It's for my father, actually, for my parents who are post-war survivors.
Mm-hmm.
And the lion is the city in Europe where my father was after the war, and their symbol is the lion. So, and then this was probably a little bit to do with COVID. Wonder, grace in this day, because wisdom comes from wonder.
Yeah,
we all have to be grateful, and nothing matters more than this day.
Yeah, that's for sure. We sometimes forget that. It's easier to live in the past and worry about the future sometimes, isn't it?
Absolutely. So it's a bit of a work in progress. It can only be done when there's no lockdown, and it's safe to have it done. And I can't work on people when it's healing, obviously. So
yeah.
So I've walked around the last year and a half with a sort of half-done tattoo, but anyways.
Yeah, well, good for you for doing what you do, Heidi. You do such important
thank
work.
you.
Make a difference to a lot of
you
people.
You too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, anything else you want to share with us about what you'd like to do outside of work, or
hiking with my dog and some friends is kind of my
your thing?
My thing, because you know what, there's something we've said all during COVID, solvitur ambulando. It's Latin. A patient said it to me years ago, Judy, walking solves everything.
Mm-hmm.
So my peace of mind has come from hiking during just getting out when you were allowed to do it on the local trails, and just exploring. We live in such a beautiful part of the province or the country.
End of it. I know there's just no endless number of trails and possibilities for exploring.
Mm-hmm. What do you like to do in your spare time?
I like hiking too.
Do you?
Yeah.
You should come with should come with Cagney and I mean that. I really do.
I'd love
to.
to.
And I spend time with my elderly mother and friends, and I mean, you know, obviously now everything's a little bit different, but
yeah. Well, I will come by and see you sometime. I'd love to see your space upstairs.
Please, anytime. You're always welcome.
It was nice to see you again, Heidi. It's been
nice to see you too, Judy, and thank you for doing this. You know, you're a wonderful member of the community. All the work you do with seniors, I've referred people to you for that. So because we're very active with a lot of the local seniors as well. So
very good. Thank you, Heidi.
Thank you, Judy. Take
good
care.
To see you now.
Okay, stay safe and be well.
You too. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Bye for now.